The air was thick with the scent of blood and sweat. It clung to the skin, stinging like acid, the way the presence of death always does. The sound of footsteps echoed against the cold stone, the rhythmic pounding of boots like a heartbeat in the still night. But these weren't just footsteps. They were the herald of something far darker, something that would break the spirit of an entire people. In the year 1459, a small, holy place in the Serbian countryside was overrun by the unforgiving tide of Ottoman soldiers. But this wasn't a mere battle for land. It was a battle for the soul of a people. And this time, the soul would not be saved. Among the chaos, there were those who had vowed to protect it. Serbian nuns, who had dedicated their lives to preserving the sacred traditions of their faith. They were the last bastion of hope in a crumbling world, and the Ottoman Janissaries, led by men who knew no mercy, would show no hesitation in tearing it all down. As the nuns were captured, their serene faces twisted in shock and disbelief, they had no idea what awaited them. The Janissaries, elite soldiers whose brutality was whispered about even in the darkest corners of Europe, dragged them from the cloisters they had vowed to protect, their robes stained with dirt and blood. The air, thick with the cries of the innocent, swirled around them. In their hearts, there was only confusion. They had been told their faith would protect them. But how could it, when faced with such a tide of unimaginable evil? The Janissaries were no ordinary soldiers. They had been raised in the fire of the Ottoman Empire, forged through hardship, loyalty, and a brutal training that left no room for weakness. Their leader, a towering figure of cruelty, his face carved from stone, looked at the nuns with cold, calculating eyes. To him, they were not women. They were not symbols of faith. They were simply prisoners, tools to be used. And in their silence, he saw only their weakness. The nuns were stripped of their dignity. Their faces, once serene, now painted with fear and humiliation. The Janissaries' grip was relentless, their actions designed to break both the body and the spirit. One by one, the women were forced to bow before their captors, their hands trembling as they gripped each other for some semblance of comfort. It was an act of violation that would scar them in ways more profound than the physical pain they endured. And yet, it was not just their bodies that were being broken, it was their souls. To the Ottomans, this was more than a conquest of land. It was the conquest of everything these women held sacred. The Janissaries were trained to see submission as victory, their domination over these holy figures, a grotesque symbol of the Ottomans' rising power. But why? Why target the nuns? Why strip them of everything? The answer lay not just in the politics of war, but in something darker, a desire to strip the Serbian people of their identity. A victory over the nuns was a victory over the very essence of their faith. It was a victory over hope. It was the physical manifestation of the empire's will to dominate, not only in the fields of battle, but in the hearts and minds of the conquered. The Janissaries used the nuns to send a message that would echo through the valleys of Serbia and into the hearts of every Christian man, woman, and child. But to the nuns, the message was clear long before the soldiers arrived. No matter what happened to them, their faith would not die. They would endure, even if it meant suffering beyond imagination. In the coming hours, the nuns endured horrors that no human should ever witness. The violence was not just physical, it was psychological. It was the breaking of the spirit, the destruction of everything they believed in. As the Janissaries tore through their sacred space, it became clear that the Ottomans were not just looking for military victory, they were seeking total annihilation. A destruction so deep that it reached beyond the physical world and tore at the very fabric of belief. In the cold, dark night, there was no place for prayer, no place for peace, only the bitter taste of fear. For the Janissaries, this was victory, a victory over the sacred, over the holy. For the nuns, this was their descent into a living nightmare. Their sanctuary had been shattered, their faith trampled underfoot. And yet, there was a glimmer of defiance burning in the hearts of those who survived the horrors of that night. It was not a cry for vengeance or a scream of resistance. It was something more. It was the quiet, steadfast belief that the soul cannot be defeated, no matter how cruel the world becomes. And that, even in the darkest of moments, there remains the smallest flicker of hope. But for now, that flicker would be enough. As the night stretched on, the Janissaries left the monastery in ruins, their victory complete. The nuns had been broken. For some, their faith tested in ways no one could have imagined. And yet, the story was far from over. Because as long as even one nun survived, the Serbian spirit would never die. The battle for their souls had just begun. This is not just the story of a few captured nuns. This is the story of a people who refuse to give in. This is the story of the enduring power of faith, no matter the cost. And the story of what happens when faith is pushed to the brink, when everything is taken away, and when the only thing left is the resilience to survive. The Janissaries may have taken their bodies, but they would never own their souls. The echoes of that dark night would linger, and soon the world would see the strength that could be drawn from the deepest of wounds. But for now, all that remained was the silence before the storm. The silence of the monastery was shattered. It had been hours since the Janissaries left, but the echoes of their presence lingered like the shadow of a nightmare. The once sacred halls, where prayers had been whispered in the dead of night, now stood as hollow reminders of what had been lost. The walls, stained with both blood and tears, whispered stories of broken spirits, stories that had been silenced too soon. Among the nuns, only a few remained. Some lay lifeless on the cold stone floors, their bodies marked by the brutal hands of the invaders. Others, trembling and barely able to stand, clung to each other in the dark corners of the monastery. Fear and hopelessness hung thick in the air, pressing down on them, suffocating their will to fight. But even in the depths of their despair, there was something more, something ancient, something deep within the human soul that could not be snuffed out. Hope. It came in quiet moments, like the first light of dawn pushing against the endless night. For those who had survived, hope was fragile, but it was there, like a flickering flame in the midst of an overwhelming storm. Among the surviving nuns was one who refused to surrender. Her name was Maria. Her body was bruised and broken, her heart heavy with the loss of her sisters, but her spirit remained unbroken. Maria had witnessed the horrors, felt the cold hands of death close to her, but she had never turned her back on her faith. Now, in the aftermath, when the monastery was left in ruins and her world felt like it had fallen apart, she stood up. With every step, her legs trembled, not from fear, but from the weight of the responsibility that now lay on her shoulders. She had to survive. She had to bear witness to the suffering of those who were no longer there. In the dim light of the morning, Maria moved through the wreckage. Her eyes, though filled with sadness, burned with a quiet resolve. She walked past the bodies of her fallen sisters, each one a memory, each one a silent prayer for justice that would never be heard. But Maria knew something the Ottomans did not. Justice would come, even if it took time. The Janissaries had left, but their cruelty had left a scar too deep to ever fully heal. Yet Maria knew that the real enemy wasn't just the soldiers who had ravaged their lives. It was the dark, unyielding force of fear that tried to break their spirits. Fear was their true conqueror. It was what made them question their faith, doubt their purpose. Fear was the force that turned the living into the walking dead. But Maria would not let it claim her. She would not let it claim the memory of those who had fallen. With each breath, she reminded herself, I am still here. I am still standing. As the days passed, Maria found herself not only healing physically, but also grappling with the emotional burden of what had happened. In the silence of the empty monastery, she began to question everything. How could such evil exist? How could they, who had lived in peace, be torn apart so violently? The anger inside her grew, but it was not anger aimed at the Janissaries alone. It was anger at the world that allowed such cruelty to unfold. It was a frustration with the helplessness that surrounded her. Maria spent the days wandering the ruins, searching for answers in the broken pieces of her faith. She knelt by the altar, where the flickering candlelight could barely illuminate the sacred icon that had been desecrated. The air was heavy with the smell of smoke and decay, and the silence was oppressive. It was the silence of abandonment. But then something unexpected happened. It was in the most unlikely of places, a small, hidden chapel at the far end of the monastery grounds. There, amidst the ruins, Maria found something that made her heart race. A letter, an old prayer scroll hidden beneath the rubble. It was a prayer, written in the ancient tongue of her people, one that spoke of resilience, of defiance against oppression. It spoke of standing tall in the face of darkness, even when all seemed lost. The letter was not just a prayer. It was a call to arms, but not in the way one might think. It wasn't a call for war, for violence, for bloodshed. It was a call to preserve the spirit, to fight not with swords, but with strength of heart. It was a reminder that no matter how much the world tried to break them, they would not be broken. The world could take everything from them, except their faith. Maria held the letter tightly, as though it were the very lifeblood of her people. The words on the paper burned in her soul, filling her with a sense of purpose she had not felt before. This was why they had survived. It was not for revenge, not for glory, but for the memory of those who could no longer speak. The next days were filled with quiet reflection, but as time passed, Maria began to gather the few remaining survivors, those who had not been captured or killed. Together, they rebuilt. It was not much, just small repairs to their broken sanctuary, but it was something. It was a beginning, a start.